Welcome to the Motivated Martial Arts Podcast. Your hosts, Jackson White and Gavin Cook, have been friends and TaeKwonDo training partners for over 40 years. This podcast will bring you a mixture of their life stories, martial arts, and business experiences to motivate you in life and throughout your martial arts journey. Adding in a mixture of inspiring interviews and some of the best traditional martial artists around today. So over to your hosts, the Motivated Martial Artists.
Welcome to the Motivated Martial Arts Podcast. This is episode 3, and today we are pleased to announce that we've got Grandmaster David Oliver, Chairman of the TAGB, joining us. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Really happy that you could join us. We feel really honoured. It's great to have you on our podcast. We want to kick off, really. People want to know all about you. Can you give us a bit of an insight into your early life and how you got involved in martial arts?
Yeah, well, my early life was, I was born in Leamington Spa, brought up in Leamington Spa. I had 3 older brothers who lived in the terrace house in Woodbine Street. I didn't like school, but I did like sport. At that time, there was no real such thing as martial arts, but I boxed for a good few years at Leamington Boys Club, because at that time, Leamington Boys Club had the Turpin brothers, who were all world and European championships, so everybody was interested in boxing in them days.
Sure,
so,
is that the relatives of Jackie Turpin?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, that's their dad. One of them, yeah. So you've got Randolph, who was world middleweight champion, and then Dick and Jackie, who were both British champions.
So, Dave, you said you had 3 older brothers. Did any of your brothers ever get into martial arts at all?
No, because there was no such thing as martial arts, and I was brought up in the 50s, and I wasn't really introduced into martial arts until 1968. Before then, I really knew nothing about martial arts. I was living in Australia, and I lived in the same house as a guy who I was a builder with, and he did Wadaroo karate. I didn't know that at the time until we were out one night drinking in Fremantle, and we had a row with some Australians over a pool game, and he kicked one of them in the head and knocked him out. And I said, "What was that?" And then he said it was Marawashigeri, which I found out later was a karate turning kick, and that's how I got started. I went and started training with him one-on-one.
Yeah,
Interesting.
And the rest is history from there.
Yeah, well, when I come back from Australia, I came back to England. I went and looked at a couple of karate clubs which were local to me, but they weren't that good. I could see that from the guy that I trained with was really good. Michael Deakin, his name wasn't. He was from Bristol, and so I wasn't really going to take it up. And then there was a demonstration in Leamington Spa at the Queensway Community Centre, or Kingsway Community Centre, and that was done by Riki Ha, and the instructor was to be mine was Bob Howe, and some of the guys as well, Murray Walker, Bill McCracken, and they did a demo, and I went seeing them, and they were jumping over 6 people, breaking bricks and boards, so I was hooked.
Brilliant. How was Bob? How was the instructor, Dave?
How was the instructor?
Yeah, how was Bob as an instructor?
Brilliant. Yeah, very good, but hard taskmaster. He didn't take prisoners.
Okay.
He didn't suffer fools. If you didn't train hard, you were out. It's simple as that. It was, it was all or nothing with him, because he was at that time. I suppose you would say he was Ree's right-hand man. He was the star of the UKTA at that time. He was the first person to win European medals in breaking, sparring patterns. So, he trained really, really hard himself. So he expected a lot from everybody else.
Just talk us through those early gradings, Dave, and how you think obviously how they differ from now. Because, martial arts, it's had to adapt as society adapts. But just give us an insight to what those early gradings were like for you.
Well, the early gradings, there wouldn't be many people grading because there wasn't that many people training. There was no women and there was no children. It was all men. So it was very macho orientated. And the grading would consist of you doing your patterns, your basics, and breaking. And that's as early as yellow belt.
Wow.
You started breaking. Yellow belt, green belt, we were breaking boards. It weren't plastic boards like we've got now, it was all wood.
Yeah.
So you had to do that. If you didn't do the breaking, you didn't pass your grading. Simple as that. And as well, if say 10 or 15 people took the grading, at least 6 of them would fail. Reed was the grading examiner, and he would just fail people. If he didn't think they were good enough, they were out. That was it. So he didn't know you either, really. So he'd just come in there, sit down, look at the grading, and those who he chopped. That was it. There was no arguing. You had to sit it again.
And what was people's general perception of that? Was that something that was just accepted? Did people quit if they failed a grading, or did they just get back on the saddle and go again?
No, some people quit, and some people just carried on and got on with it. I know people who failed a few times, but they just got on with it. But everybody expected it. You expected it. If you didn't perform, you failed. It was as simple as that. It was like the black belt grading, for instance. When I took my black belt grading, you did your pants, you did your floor work, you sparred 1-on-1, and then you tried 2 against 1. But the breaking, you had to do 3 inches of wood turning kick, both legs, side kick, both legs, reverse turning kick, both legs, break 25 tiles and break a house brick. If you didn't break it, you failed.
Brilliant.
Right. So
it's slightly different.
Lots of people have.
Yeah, slightly different from the black belt gradings we have now. Then I suppose.
Nothing like it. People wouldn't do it now. I would think a very, very small percentage would pass the black belt gradings that we took then.
Sure.
They were really, really hardcore. And if you didn't perform it as simple as that, you didn't pass. There was no half measures. That was it.
That's it. So pass or fail, perform or don't.
Yeah, and you expected that. There's no thinking, and if you packed up, you didn't really care.
Yeah.
What he was trying to do was get people out there to start schools up, open up everywhere, all over the country. That was his aim for the ITF, the General Joint. So he wanted people who could really go out there and perform. Mm-hmm. He didn't want people who couldn't. If they were going to start a club, he wanted them to be really good.
Sure.
So he had a really high standard, which he did have.
Okay, so what year did you obtain your black belt?
1973.
70. That's
the
year I was born.
In 70. Well, I started in 70, and I got the black belt in 73. So, it was a 3-year period.
Okay, so once you got your black belt, then my first school. Obviously, you were my first instructor or real instructor. My dad taught me in the house in the living room. But my first memories of Taekwondo are going into your school in Leamington, in Warwick. YMCA was it? I think the hall there.
Warwick Youth Centre.
Warwick Youth Centre, yeah. On a cold Sunday morning. So from being a black belt, what made you want to open your own school?
Well, I was really mad on Taekwondo. I was hooked on it. It was my life as far as I was concerned, and I only wanted really to compete, which I did, and I was mad for that. And I was training as well, and even when I was a red belt, I used to help take the classes sometimes because Bob lived in Coventry, couldn't get there, so I had to step in. But he packed up teaching. He was the original instructor, and he packed in and went to work in Saudi Arabia. So he just passed the club over to me, so I took over as the instructor at Warwick. I also later on took over as the instructor at Nuneaton because there was another black belt called Ian Duffy, and he ran the Nuneaton club, and he wanted to pack up. He didn't want to do any more, so I took that one over, and I also opened up Solihull myself under Bob's guidance. He said to me, a good place to go and open up would be Solihull, this big area, affluent. So I went and opened there. So I was actually running 3 schools at that time. I was running Nuneaton, Solihull, and Warwick, and still working as a bricklayer. So it was quite hardcore.
I can imagine.
And over time, there's been some legendary black belts come out of the Warwick club. Certainly, I remember back in the day going to watch all the team events at the Leamington Spa Centre. It's some amazing fighters, wasn't there?
Oh yeah. Well, between Warwick, Solihull, and Nuneaton, we've had over 40, 50 international fighters and world and European champions. So that's one of my biggest things that I'm proud of. The people I've produced some really, really good people over those years, and I'm chuffed about that. And I think it was the way we trained, which was really hard. A lot of clubs didn't train that hard, and I think that's what put us top really. I mean, we won the British Championships 3 years in a row. We also won black belt team championships 5 times. So it was and half the time I had half the British team as well. So
yeah, sure.
It was good, yeah.
Oh, I remember some of those teams. Just taking a quick step back, can you just talk us through about some of your bouts, some of the times that you've competed, where you've competed, some of the titles that you've won?
Yeah, well, I won the British Championships and the English Championships. I also fought the European Championships in Rotterdam with the team, which that was a really disastrous event for us because we got kind of misled. We went there, we were told to go there to fight. When we got there, the hotel wasn't booked. The fees hadn't been paid for us to enter the championship. We'd only practiced point fighting, not continuous fighting. And when we got off the plane, we were told by the chief instructor, "Oh, by the way, it's continuous," and we had no sparring equipment. So when we were called to the area to actually fight against Greece, none of us had any equipment. We had to borrow it off the German team. Although we picked up a bronze medal in the team event, it was it was the beginning of the end for me, really.
Okay, yeah. So I can imagine that was quite a learning experience. Having not practiced continuous sparring and only doing point sparring, then moving into that continuous arena, totally different.
Yeah, and the Dutch and the Germans at that point in time had all been doing that, and they were very good. They were like miles better than we were. They were advanced to us. I mean, that's the first time I ever seen an axe kick when I went there. Before then, I'd never seen an axe kick. It wasn't taught by the Koreans. It was the Dutch who were using it.
Okay.
So,
what was the name of that Dutch fighter that used to always use the axe kick? I forget his name.
Lots of them. Henk Meyer.
Henk Meyer, that's it.
Henk Meyer, Win Boss. They had a really top fighters at that time. He or Ron Bout. They were a really good team.
So you can take the credit for bringing the axe kick to the UK then, Dave, I suppose.
Well, after we come back there, obviously we just practice it like hell. It wasn't too good when you hadn't seen it before until it hit you.
So from those early days then, of the competitions going over, you mentioned that it didn't seem to be in the UK well administrated and organised. So is that one of the reasons that you decided to form the TAGB?
No. The reason the TAGB was formed is I was on the UKTA committee representing the West Midlands area, and Bob Howe was the chairman. And at that time, we had won the World Championships in Argentina when I was a coach and Bob was the manager, and we'd also won the European ITF Championships in Naples. So the chief instructor, Enrique, when we came back, he went off without the committee's decision because everything had to go through the UKTA committee to decide, and he booked the NEC in Birmingham to hold the World Championships, put a kind of a deposit down on it, but he never told anybody. And at that time, the UKTA only had about £2,000 in funds. Well, to book the NEC for 3 days and things like that would have cost a fortune. Bob Howe was a businessman. He got his head screwed on, and he said, "I'm not getting caught for that. If that goes under, that's going to cost a lot of money, and I'm not getting caught for it as chairman." So he resigned. Right? As he was my instructor, I resigned. All the instructors in the West Midlands then decided to resign. The next week was the British Championships in Nottingham. We went there and competed. When we were there, we called a meeting, and we had it on the Warwick coach, and the Wales area and Oxfordshire area as well agreed that they would leave. So we decided to leave and form a new organisation where things like that wouldn't happen. And so that's the reason why it was formed. No other reason. We weren't kicked out or anything like that. We actually resigned. I've still got the letter of resignation where we resigned from the UKTA. And then after a few months, the Derbyshire area came, the West of England area came, and within a year, we had more members than the original organisation, really. And then we decided to run it more professionally, like with gradings, uniforms, belts, certificates, because half the time the UKJ you didn't get them things. You wouldn't even find out your grading result for you could take a grading, you wouldn't find out for 4 or 5 weeks.
Right.
Black belt grading, you wouldn't find out sometimes for 3 or 4 months. So we just decided to do it on a more professional basis than what it was being run, because it's really being run by one man. Whatever Ree wanted to do, that's what he was doing.
Sure. Okay.
And the procedure as well for gradings was it was really bad because the grading at that time was only £10 to take a grading, but he got £9 and you got £1. Out of that, you had to book the hall and buy all the wood for the breaking.
Yeah.
So every time you had a grading, it cost you money if you were an instructor.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
that makes sense.
Yeah, not ideal.
I mean, it's amazing, really, when you look back. I mean, what you and obviously the other committee members have done with the TAGB, how it's grown, especially at a time when there wasn't social media and anything like that. I mean, you've really sort of, you've done fantastically well. It's been amazing, really, I suppose. I mean, was it difficult to get? Sorry,
go on, yeah.
Sorry, there. Was it difficult to get it off the ground initially, or was it quite a bit of a struggle, or do you find that the momentum built up and then you got more instructors involved and it sort of went from there?
We had to put our own money in to begin with, and we didn't take any money out of the gradings or anything like that. We did it all for nothing. But also, I made a point of going out and getting on side with Combat Magazine, Fighters Magazine, people like that, and the general martial arts community. Because we started entering open tournaments, which was the FSK, Freestyle Karate, which was run by Mike Haig, who run Combat Magazine. And we got a lot of publicity off that, because when we first went in, we got beat quite often because of the point fighting and how long they'd been much more experienced at it than we were. But within a year, we were winning those tournaments, and that gave us, we got a lot of publicity off that. Also, when we changed, we brought over Heel Cho from America to do the black belt grading, and at that time he was probably one of the most, if not the most famous Korean instructor at the time. Yeah. And so we brought him over and used him for the grading exams and the black belts, and that helped with the publicity as well. But like I said, I've made a lot of friends within the martial arts community, the karate world, the kung fu world, the kickboxing, so that helped us a lot. Yeah,
I was actually lucky enough to do my black belt with Heel Chow.
Yeah,
I forget, but it was certainly a tough black belt grading.
Yeah, and I was unlucky enough to be failed by him on my second dan.
Well, you're not the only one who got black belt. But I'll tell you a story about him. I used to travel around the country with him when he was doing seminars and teaching and doing black belt grades, and we stayed in this big house up in Yorkshire in the Dales, and we were in this house, and it was really old-fashioned, and the guy in there, it was like Fawlty Towers. He obviously thought that me and Cho were gay. Cho used to wear gold necklaces, big neck jumper, and he went to bed on the night time, and it was freezing. And he came down the next morning for breakfast, and he said, "Oh, Jesus Christ!" He said, "Last night," he said, "I got scared to death." I said, "Why, what happened?" And what he did, he jumped into bed and they put a hot water bottle in his bed. Of course, he put his leg on it. He thought it was an animal. He was shit himself. Excuse the French. He absolutely frit him to death. And I said, "I thought you said black belts were impervious to darkness and fear." I said, "It was only a water bottle." He was absolutely petrified.
Absolutely classic, Dave. Absolute classic.
And another time when we went to LA, he was telling us that he had one of his best friends was Bong Soo Han, who was a Hapkido instructor, and their gyms were only about a mile apart. And one night Joe was locking up, and this guy come into the car park in a vest and shorts, big guy tattoos, and banging on the door, said he wanted to fight, he was going to kill him and everything. So Joe told him to go away anyway. He wouldn't go away, kept banging on the door. So Joe opened the door, went out, smacked him and left him in the car park. Got in his car, and afterwards he went to meet Bong Soo Han for dinner, and they sat down, and he said, I had a bad night tonight. He said, I had this guy come banging on the door. Bong Soo Han said to him, yeah. He said, do you have a vest on and shorts covered in tattoos? He goes, yeah. He said, how do you know that? He said, yeah. He come banging on my door. I said, we don't fight here. When you do pants, go down the choke.
Yeah, there's many ways to skin a cat, isn't there?
Yeah.
Just taking you back, Dave, to the days when you got into the freestyle karate circuit. Can you just talk us through some of those personalities on the team? Because I know, looking back from my childhood and going to squad training, there's been some absolutely fantastic fighters. Can you just give us an insight into the mindset of those fighters and some of those key personalities that helped form those early days with you?
Yeah, well, I think, in those days, people like Kenny Walton, Kim Stones, Tony Sewell, Elvis Parsley, your own father, Jackson, Harjit Singh, Ron Sergey, they were all very, very competitive, and they all wanted to win. And so we went there, but not only ourselves, you had people like Kevin Brewerton, who was fighting at that time, and Alfie Lewis, and Neville Ray. So they had, on that side of it, Peter O'Para, they had some really, really good competitors as well. And I think it raised the game of the TAGB in actual fact, because whenever after that we came up against people from the ITF who'd never moved on and never only fought in ITF competitions, we easily beat them because they just weren't used to that kind of style of fighting. So, but their mindset was the squad training was so hard, and I made it that way. I watch the squad training now, and although it's hard, it's not the same as when I did it. You didn't come to squad training unless you were fit. You didn't come to get fit. If you weren't fit, don't bother coming. And I didn't take any prisoners. People used to go outside and be sick.
I think we've nearly all experienced some of your squad trainings, Dave. There's times with people seeing grown men crawling.
I think that helped. Yeah. I think it built people's character. It made them tough. Yeah. They were fit, really, really fit. So and when they compete there, because there was such an array of people, like in the lightweight division, you would have like 4 people who were you could have like David Shepherd, Ralph Minot, Wayne Burnett, all in one division. Elvis Parsley, it was
all quality fighters in their own rights.
Yeah. Even the heavyweight, you had like Tony Sewell, Kim Stones, Jamie Cochran. So you had 4 people at kind of every weight. So it was really, really hard to get into the team. Even we could have fielded 3 teams at some time.
Okay then. So just talking about the fighters, I don't want to put you on the spot. Can you give us who you consider some of your best ever fighters?
You mentioned personally or the team?
Personally, just as individuals, and then there's maybe a couple of the teams.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously you've got to pick out Tony Sewell as a heavyweight, because as a heavyweight he moved like a lightweight, and he had tremendous kicking ability. I'd say the only downfall Tony had is he wasn't a team man. He was more an individual. Kenny Walton was probably the fittest person I have ever seen train. He sort of took it to a new level when he started training. He just trained and trained and trained. You got people, and also you had personalities like Nigel Banks. He was like the comedian of the team. He was the funniest guy I've ever known. Actually, he should have been a stand-up comedian. He was like, you had your dad, who he never backed out of anything. He would fight anybody. He didn't, sometimes we had people on the team who, when there was somebody they didn't want to fight, you could tell they didn't fight, but your dad was never like that. He was straight out. You had Harjit Singh, who was, crazy. People like Mick Ford, who I don't know if you remember.
I remember Mick Ford. I've fought a couple of his sidekicks.
Yeah, he was a
ruthless
teacher, but he was a psychopath. People like that. Ron Sergey, who had amazing ability all round, and like I say, you've got David Shepherd, who was won 2 or 3 world championships things. There were so many of them. It's difficult to single them out, and even in later days, people like Joseph Skembry who came along. I remember when he was 16 years old, taking him to Poland, and he fought the European champion who was 28 years old, and he was the ITF European champion. And Skembry went out, and the first thing he did was jumped up and hit him with a 360 jump kick and knocked his head guard up. The crowd were going mad, and he was just a 16-year-old kid. So for people like him to come along and get into the team, and then after that, obviously, you had Warren Voice. Over the years, people like Steve Brindley, so many of them.
How do you feel, sort of talk about the olden days and Dave, obviously moving forward to now, how do you feel as though, keeping on the subject of sparring, I suppose, how do you feel as though the sparring, maybe the different techniques have changed, and we have a lot more safety equipment and stuff now, back in the day, but do you feel that the sparring's maybe adapted a little bit with obviously the different technologies and the different type of training and sort of conditioning and strength training that a lot of the athletes tend to do now?
I don't really. I think it's still down to the individual, because I think any of those people I've named, you could bring them today and put them in one of our tournaments and then win it. So I think training like that, where you're a competitor, is down to the individual. That's always about how much work you're prepared to put in.
Absolutely.
And I've seen some people who were really prepared to put a lot of work in, and others who had talent but never put the application in. And without the application, it's not the same. Now, if you go back right to the beginning, when there was no equipment, obviously, when I first started training, the sparring it was just like how many bruises you got. You know, there were a lot of medals. You know, if your legs got black and blue, your arms were black and blue, you thought it was great. You know, and if you got your ribs broke or your nose busted, it was like, you know, that was part of it. But then again, it was just brutal. Like I said, there's no children involved, there's no women involved. It was all adult males. So, you know, it was really, really hard.
So you've seen quite a few changes over the years, because, you know, certainly for myself, having a 16-year break in Taekwondo and coming back just over 12 years ago, I saw a huge change. So that change for you, is that something you intentionally pushed within the TAGB, or is it something that's naturally progressed, the change? Because it seems now Taekwondo, although we still have, I consider some of the best competitors in the world with the squad current day, it seems to be more family orientated and geared around children.
Well, it is. It definitely is. I think what happens now is a lot of the young guys who were like 16, 17, 18, who would have came into Taekwondo, go and do MMA for a little while until they realise that they're not going to get nothing out of it. And so I think that's changed it, and everybody's had to change. The instructors have had to change, we've had to change. More and more juniors have come in, more and more families, but in a way I think that's a good thing, because it's opened it up more for people. And, you know, with the juniors, if they stay in and they compete, you think by the time they get to 16 or 17, they're so used to competing. I know the recent European Championships, there was a couple of guys in the Welsh team. They're both very young. They're both about 16, 17, but they're absolutely terrific fighters. And that, I think, is because they've come through the junior ranks and got into it that way. So, but I think family orientation is a good thing. We have a lot more ladies now, a lot more juniors, and I mean, some people only teach juniors now, which wouldn't have been that. So some people would probably be able to make a living who are professional instructors now without the children part of it.
Yeah. I think you've definitely, over the years, obviously instructors have had to learn to adapt to obviously to deal with children and deal with all the problems and stuff that come along with having children in your class. You know, so
yeah, definitely, yeah. But that's down to the instructor and his ability to change. You know, he's got to have that personality to be able to handle that. I've seen people who can't, and they'll fall by the wayside these days if they don't do it.
Yeah. Just moving on, Dave, to sort of more traditional Taekwondo, things like patterns and things like that. So I've got a couple of questions here from a couple of our students. One of the questions was, you know, how do you feel that Taekwondo patterns, how did it work in regards to self-defence?
Well, I don't think it does, personally. I think the performance of the pattern is about the person. You know, it's about what you put into it. Because if you get really competitive people doing patterns, and they're very good, and they probably could be. But as for a kind of a street situation, the techniques are all there, but they're all there. You know, you can use those in one-step sparring, set sparring, free sparring. But to me, it's an art form. Doing patterns, more than realistic self-defence. That's a different thing to me altogether. I think it is all about the person who performs. I always tell my students, look, a pattern is just an empty vessel. It's up to you to bring it to life. Okay. You know, so, you know, I mean, realistically, you know, look at TKD. You know, doing 6 stamps, I don't think you're going to use that in the street. Do very good in a bar anywhere, I don't think. But you know, I think so. You know, if people like patterns and they compete in it, then that's great, and that gives them another form to me. If they, you know, whether they like breaking, it's the same with destruction. You know, if people really go in destruction, I mean, you could say, oh well, if somebody can break a brick, if they punch it, they'll kill you. You know, but that's not naturally the case. You know, it's about a street situation. It's a different thing altogether.
So another question that we had from one of our Facebook members: what makes a student stand out in a grading? What are you looking for from those students that sets them above everybody else?
For me, effort. You know, that you can see they're putting everything into the grading. Their concentration, is a big thing. What they're doing, how they're looking, well, they're moving when they do their patterns, for instance. Are they heads changing when they change of direction? In the black belt grading, that's what I always say: effort, focus, all those kind of things. That's what we're looking for, makes them stand out. But generally, you can tell straight away when they come out on the floor, within the first 30 seconds, half a minute with people, you can tell how hard they've trained, how much ability they've got. Obviously, there are people with natural ability, but you'll see some people who've worked their socks off to get where they are, and you can always tell that. And sometimes in the black belt grading, you'll get, in the senior grades, you'll get 6 or 7 people out there, and one of them will be outstanding, and you'll look at it and say, he or she has really trained for this grading. You know, they've really put the effort in. And you'll see other people who, to me, have got the attitude, well, I'll have a go. You know, I'll see how I get on. You know, if I pass, I pass. If I don't, I don't. But, you know, that's, to me, that's what we look for. You know, focus, effort, you know, the look that they're trained, and you can tell straight away, you know, when they come out.
It's interesting you say that, because it's just going back to those first impressions, isn't it? And I know, certainly I say to my students, you know, if you stand up there like a wet lettuce, you know, people can read, you can read them straight away, can't you? You know, and
when they come out, you know, the suit's not pressed, the suit's not clean, they're sloppy when they come out. You know, it's only like, you know, I say to some people sometimes that, can you know, when you're a big crowd of people together, so can you imagine, you know, doing the changing of the guard and one of them's doing everything different to everybody else? You stand out like a sore thumb if you look sloppy, and that's a fact. And it's the same with Taekwondo. If I get 6 or 7 red belts up there, and one of them is just sloppy, he stands out like a sore thumb. You know, so it's all, for me, it's about effort. You don't have to be the best. You don't have to be able to kick really high. You know, most of the kicks, let's face it, are middle section anyway. So that doesn't count. Sometimes people think because they can kick really high that they're going to get extra marks. Well, they don't actually get lower marks because they're not kicking where they're meant to kick. So, you know, it's about how they, when patterns and basics, it's about performing it correctly, stances, everything right. You know, you'll get people there who can't even make a good walking stance or a good L stance. You know, which are basic things which anybody should be able to do, whether they're 7 or 70.
And do you feel that confidence in the class obviously follows through into a real street situation, doesn't it? Because if you're stood at the bar and you're the one that's not looking or not portraying confidence, then you could become the victim, couldn't you?
Well, that's what I say. I say to people when I do teach on seminars and things like that, remember, when people pick on you, they pick on you because you're a victim. You know, they don't go into a bar and look for the biggest guy or the hardest looking guy. They go in there and they're looking for a victim. And you know, if you portray that image, and so, you know, if you come out on the floor when you're doing Taekwondo, you know, and you're not fighting and you're not performing, you know, you'll the same thing. You'll become a victim. It's the same in competition. If you go to competition and you haven't trained for it, you know, I've seen people get beaten up because they haven't trained for it.
Sure, yeah, you see it all the time. Yeah. Or you get a middleweight that's in the heavyweight division because he couldn't be bothered to train, and they pay the price. Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
How important would you say it is, Dave, for students to enter competitions? Because I know this is a conversation I have certainly with my students a lot, and I always sort of say, well, if you've never experienced that adrenaline rush, how do you know how you're going to feel if it ever happens on the street?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think people should, and even if they only do patterns.
Yeah.
So if they don't like sparring, or they can't spar, they're not good at sparring, it doesn't stop them from entering the patterns. Because, like you said, when you're going to stand up there and do that pattern, you're still going to be nervous. You know, but I mean, the most nervous I see people is when they take their black belt grading. Now, I've had people say to me who were champions say, well, I'd rather do anything than do this black belt grading or do this grading. You know, I remember Rebecca Riggs saying to me, who was a great champion at TAGB, said, she came off and said to me, God, I'd rather done anything than that. You know, and she was a firearms officer in the police. So, you know, it shows you how much pressure that it puts on you. And in a competition, it's the same. If you come up and you've got hundreds of people watching you, and you've got to perform that pattern and not forget it. And that's about keeping your mind clear, because that's what happens to people. They just go blank, and that's it. And that could happen to you then when you're outside, and somebody comes up and starts on you, and if your mind goes blank, it's too late. You know, you haven't reacted.
Okay, Dave, can you just tell us a little bit about your role in the BTC? or the British TaeKwonDo Council?
Yeah, well, I've actually got a meeting today with that and tomorrow. Well, I'm the chairman of the BTC. He was elected. This is the second time I've been chairman. And the main thing is that there's 14 groups inside the BTC, and we just try to make sure that all the associations that belong to the national governing body are run properly, that they do have welfare officers, that they do have at their tournaments, that they do have people there to look after people. They make sure they're all insured, they make sure their instructors have all been DBS'd, all this kind of thing, first aid, trying to get everything so that if you're in there, it's like a stamp to say,
sure,
if you're in the BTC, you are legit. And I go meetings at sports council offices and all over the place with the BTC, and it's a good thing. Some people who are outside of it knock it and say, "Oh, it's this, that," but they don't know because they've never been there.
Yeah.
And the BTC, to me, it is a good thing because it gets people to work together. There's ITF people on there, there's WTF people on there, and there's individuals on there, individual groups. So all in all, there's about 14 groups all together on it. But to me, it's a good thing is they just make sure everything is done right. And of course, we do get funding from the Sports Council as well, which goes to putting on events and things like that.
Okay, fantastic. Having that regulation and that seal of approval and stamp of approval that clubs and instructors aspire to, I think helps regulate the sport and gives it credibility as well amongst all the other competing sports in the UK.
Well, the BTC has got the highest thing that you can get from the child protection people. It's been rubber stamped by the NSPCC. So you can't have anything better than what they've got, and it does give you, when you go somewhere and you want to start a school up or you go to a club, if you're not in the BTC, they're going to say, well, where's your insurance for start off and all of that kind of thing. And on there you hear horrendous stories about people. We heard stories on there about people putting on tournaments, they've got no insurance, somebody got knocked out because they didn't have a head guard on, and the guy got sued for £35,000 because the guy had concussion. You hear things about all these kind of things happening like that. Yeah. Instructors with no insurance, somebody goes in their club, they're training, and the first thing they do, they break their ankle doing something, they sue the instructor. There's been there's been people on there paid out £100,000 through being, people, when they think, oh, it doesn't matter about the licence, it does matter. It does matter. No, it's really important. Every time somebody comes in a club, they should have a licence, they should be insured, because it's only for your own protection. I know some people let it slip, sometimes they forget, but it's only for your own protection, because I've seen some horror stories about it.
I can imagine.
No, it's good to hear.
Yeah.
So Dave, do you know what? It's been an absolutely fantastic insight into your martial arts career. One final question before you go. You obviously, it spanned numerous years your martial arts career within Taekwondo, and you've done some absolutely groundbreaking things and achieved so much. What has motivated you over the last 45 years almost?
Taekwondo itself, because I owe everything to Taekwondo. I was the first professional instructor in the UK today in Taekwondo, and I made my living at it, and it's given me everything. So I've always thought to give back to it as much as I could, and I always have. And I say to people, sometimes I don't think they believe me, I say, even if I wasn't chairman of the TAGB or the BTC or whatever, and I did Taekwondo, I'd be in the TAGB, because I think the TAGB is the best organisation around. Yeah. And so I've always, motivated me is Taekwondo, is the thing that's motivated me. And seeing the people that I've produced and the friends that I've made. And I'm in the committee of the TAGB, we've all known each other for 30 years. And for 8 people to stay together that long, don't get me wrong, we have our ups and downs, and we have our fallouts.
as every good family does.
Yeah, but we always put it to the back for the good of Taekwondo, and that's for me. That's it. Like I said, it's given me everything, and that's how I'll always remember it. So I've been really lucky. I've done something that I enjoyed as a living for nearly all of my life. There's not many people can say that.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, it's been amazing to have you on here today, Dave. Again, like I said, it's great to hear some of the old stories as well about the Koreans, and it's always it's always a good insight, I think, to obviously certainly for us and for all the people that are going to be listening to this podcast. So I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come in today and go for this stuff. So.
Yeah, thanks very much, guys. Really appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you,
Dave.
Take care.
Thank
you. Okay, bye. Bye.